what's going on, everybody? It's not your average Josh back here for another movie review, and today I'm reviewing the new Fast 10 movie, or Fast X, however you want to pronounce it, the new installment in the Fast and Furious franchise. But before I get into my review, I do want to say, if you're watching this, hit that like button if you do enjoy this video. Also, leave a comment down below if you have thoughts on any of the Fast and Furious movies or this movie in particular. Also, hit that subscribe button as well if this is your first time watching any of my videos, or if you're a returning viewer as well. Any support for this channel is very much appreciated. You can also follow me on TikTok and add me on Snapchat, where I will post content similar to this. But for the most part, my content will be here on this YouTube channel, Not Your Average Josh. So again, I appreciate all the support, but let's go ahead and get into this review of Fast 10. Fast X was directed this time by Louis Leterrier and written by Dan Mazeau, Justin Lin, and characters created by Gary Scott Thompson. And this time around, you have pretty much the whole crew coming back as Dom Toretto and his family are targeted by the vengeful son of drug kingpin Herman Reyes, Dante, played by Jason Momoa. Now, I am not the biggest Fast and the Furious franchise fan. It's like 5 through 9, especially 9. I only saw each of them about once, so I don't have necessarily the connection to the characters that other people have. And the first movie, to me, I still love so much. I just watched that recently. I was going to do a rewatch of 5 through 9. Didn't get a chance to. I've just been doing so many reviews of movies and different videos and whatnot, but I did do a little catch up on everything that was going on in this universe going into this movie. This movie is everything that you would expect it is. It is very ridiculous, over the top, entertaining at times, just several different emotions going on in this movie. There was plenty of times where I was just laughing out loud just because of how ridiculous and over the top some of these situations get in this movie. There was also moments where I gasped literally out loud because of certain things that were going on, and moments where I did let out a little cheer, an audible cheer. So a lot of different emotions coming from this movie. Everything I think that you would want from a Fast and Furious movie here. And again, as a person who's not the biggest fan in the world, it's not a great movie or anything. I do think whatever your favorite one, probably 5 through 7 for most people. Those 3 movies are definitely, I would say, better than this one still. But compared to F9, which I don't think necessarily was a bad movie. I mean, if you look at some of the scores, the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, 82%. The whole conversation with that movie, of course, was them actually going to space. Like, the joke that had been going on for the past few movies finally came to fruition, and I just think it was just too much. Like, as ridiculous and as much as this franchise and whoever's directing this, whoever is responsible for this, Vin Diesel, of course, being at the head of a lot of it, they know what this franchise is at this point. I just thought they just went way too far with going into space and just how it happened and how they end up getting back to Earth. It's just too much. Like, this franchise already really stretches reality to such a level where it's just so hard to even, get on the ride with it, so to speak, if you will. And I just thought they just went a little too far with that. So I think with this movie, they did reel it back a bit, if that's even possible. While there is a bunch of ridiculous shit that happens in this movie, plenty of stuff with bombs where there's just certain shit, there'll be just so many moments in this movie where you'll be like, okay, that obviously would never happen, and that is just crazy. But at this point, for me, at least, I have come to accept that with this franchise. I know exactly what I'm getting into when I get into this, so that's not necessarily a negative with me at this point with these movies. I just come to expect it at this point. At this point, I'm up for anything, and this movie definitely gives you that. I think Jason Momoa here as Dante, this movie really immediately starts out getting introduced to who his character is, being the son of Joaquin de Almeida's character, Herman Reyes. It really goes back and retraces some of the events here at the beginning of the movie of Furious 6 movie and what happens there when they're robbing, getting the vault out, and then, of course, his dad dying, Dante, and showing his path to revenge in this movie. And one thing I did have, and I still really kind of have a little bit of a qualm with his character is, literally, this is like 10 years ago when these events first took place. They don't really explain why it took so long for him to exact his revenge. 10 years go by, and now all of a sudden he's really pissed and wanting to come after Dom and his family. That part was, the reasoning behind that was never fully explained. Really, that's my main qualm with this character. Overall, I just thought Jason Momoa really brought a lot of energy and charisma to this character. You can tell he's really having fun with this character. He had some real sadistic moments in this movie where he's really being rather evil, really going full almost comic book villain in this movie. I thought Jason Momoa really actually brought a true villain that brought stakes to this movie, and you were genuinely worried about the characters, and he was genuinely imposing, causing all sorts of mayhem throughout this movie. and he really did balance that line of being sadistic and evil, and then would have plenty of funny lines throughout this movie. Some of them didn't work. I thought they went a little too far at certain times, but I thought for the most part, he was really having fun with this character, and I had a good time with it overall. Of course, as I do say with Jason Momoa's character, there is more stakes added to this movie. Like, throughout this whole movie, constantly, I was worried about all the characters. I did not know who was going to make it out. But while saying that, this franchise has gotten to the point where pretty much anybody can come back to life at this point. Like, I mean, Han at one point was seen to be dead. He came back. Of course, Letty, she was seen to be dead. She came back. And it just feels like at this point, anybody that dies, especially off screen, but honestly, even on screen at this point, you just feel like they're not gone. Like, they're going to come back at some point. I think that, honestly, in a way, cancels out the stakes that are in this movie. Every time I'd be really invested and, like, worried about a character, a few minutes would go by and I would immediately kind of subconsciously think again, oh, well, yeah, I'm sure they might come back in another movie or something. I think that does kind of damper some of the emotional weight in certain moments in this movie, because you just have that thought. It is kind of a sort of in a comparison to like the MCU at this point with how connected their universe is and how you have certain characters come back in different ways. It definitely is in that territory as well. And I would say this movie really is comparable to a modern day superhero movie. You have Jason Momoa, who is this evil, over-the-top character, doesn't give a fuck about killing people, complete crazy dude who's doing shit that probably would not be possible with certain people, and having this, again, just this personality of kind of a super villain for already being the son of a horrible guy. So it really makes sense in that way. Another similar kind of comic book storyline here. We have Charlize Theron coming back in this movie. Didn't know that, it was in the trailer. Sorry if that's a spoiler for that. And she's actually working a little bit with our heroes in this movie, because Jason Momoa is basically her enemy, and of course the enemy of my enemy thing. They do have that, something that of course you've seen before. I thought particularly though Charlize Theron did a good job. She has plenty of moments here with Michelle Rodriguez's character Letty. A lot of dislike towards each other at this point, but of course where the heart of this franchise is at this point is with family. As much as it is a joke and a meme at this point, this movie, it definitely warmed my heart to see all the characters back together when this movie started. You have them all sitting down, same place, about to have a meal again, and it just really did feel nice to see Han, Sung Kang, who this whole movie is trying to move on still from his relationship with, of course, Gal Gadot's character. He opens up a Tinder account, which I thought was really funny, and it was just nice to see him back in the fold and everything. Jordana Brewster as Mia back, of course, Dom's sister and Brian's wife. Don't see Brian in this movie. You do get a couple mentions from him. The only thing you actually do see, no spoilers here, is some of the flashback scenes from 10 years ago when they were doing the heist with the vault and everything. Jordana Brewster really gets very little screen time in this movie. It was nice to see her again, though. Tyrese Gibson, of course, and Ludacris back in this movie. I mean, I just really love their characters in this franchise. They didn't really have that much to do in this movie either, along with Natalie Emmanuel as Ramsey. They were kind of really just the side characters that we know that are there to add some more familiarity and just add some more things for other people to do within the scenes, if I'm being honest. There really wasn't a lot for their characters in this movie. John Cena is back as Jacob, of course, the brother of Mia and Dom, and honestly, John Cena was a blast to watch in this movie. He spends a lot of time with Dom's son, little Brian. He's getting a little older now. Dom's kind of teaching him how to drive and stuff because of certain events that happen. John Cena spent a lot of time with little Brian here, and he seemed like such a cool uncle. Brie Larson in this movie, playing the daughter of Mr. Nobody, of course, Kurt Russell's character, who is still perceived to be as missing. Not saying that he's dead, of course. I figured that he was going to come back at some point, probably in the next one, or if they do a part 3 to this set of movies. I thought Brie Larson was fine in this movie. She didn't have too terribly much to do, but she did have some things that were important to the plot throughout the movie, and I liked her presence enough. You have Alan Ritchson in this movie come in playing his character Ames, who is on the law enforcement side, the government agency, and they do thing that is kind of a little cliche that I feel like we've seen before in movies that I kind of was a little mixed on. You have the government basically end up going against Dom and his family in this movie at a certain point. It just felt like something that is very derivative that we've seen in a lot of other stuff. And this character specifically, played by Alan Ritchson, it is very over the top and kind of very cheesy at times. His character was just a little bit annoying, I'm not gonna lie, for a lot of this movie. Also, always nice to see legends in here like Helen Mirren and Rita Moreno, of course, reprising their roles in this movie. Both really have very brief appearances here. It seemed like they both were just like, okay, they're gonna be on set for a couple days here so they can knock out this scene or two. But it was really nice to see them as well. This movie is really centered mainly on Dom and his war that is developing with Jason Momoa's character Dante. But that's really like the focus of this movie in terms of the emotion. Like everyone else is really just kind of on the ride for what's going on here, trying to stop Dante from doing what he's doing, but that is really where the main emotional pull is here. Dante's just continuing to try and go after each family member that Dom has. Some of the action scenes, I think there have been better ones, more memorable action scenes throughout this franchise. There's nothing that's necessarily going to blow you away with this movie. There were some moments that, again, were pretty awesome to see just on the big screen. I was the only one in the theater at my showtime. I went to a 4 o'clock showing on a Thursday. It was a little bit disappointing at first, I'm not gonna lie. I did kind of want a little bit of a crowd there, but honestly, I do like being in the theater by myself, though, at times. The story of this, much like some of the action scenes, does get stretched a little bit. There's times where you're like, okay, would this have happened? How is this motherfucker in this situation? But overall, I think, again, this franchise just knows what it is at this point. It's not too concerned with getting every little minute detail right. These movies are just out now to have fun, to still have those themes of family there. And there are moments in this movie, emotionally and in terms of certain action shots, where I did get chills. Genuine, like, awesome moments in the theater. So I think if you love going to the theater and experiencing movies like this, I think you'll have a good time with it. But if you're expecting it to try and get back to where these movies were, 5 through 7, I don't think it's quite there yet. Maybe they will get there in the next movie, and if they do make another one after that, maybe the hype will build more like it was back then. But I think they did kind of go over the hump a little bit in this franchise after that 9th one, going the way they went, and now trying to come back to the means a little bit in this movie. It's just going to be hard to really build that same hype and anticipation that was there for 5 through 7, of course. But overall, I still did enjoy my time with this movie. A lot of my mixed and negative aspects are certain elements I already expect with this franchise, and that's by no means should excuse any problems that would be with this movie. Nothing really a lot here new that really bothered me or anything. I thought the villain was actually done very well here. Other than the fact, again, that I already mentioned at the beginning, where it's been 10 years, they don't really explain what the fuck he was doing for 10 years and why he waited this long to come back at them. But other than that, just other moments within each scene where you're like, okay, he's just fucking with this guy here. He could have easily killed this person, but like a lot of supervillains do in movies, they will wait around and do either a speech or like a countdown of like when they're going to blow shit up or something. And there's just moments like that throughout, of course, this movie where you're going to be like, okay, with these movies at this point, I mean, this is the 10th installment in this franchise. You're either on board for this or you're not. So if you're still complaining about this stuff, it's kind of like, well, what do you expect? I mean, this isn't going to be, you know, the Godfather of racing movies. It's only going to provide so much, you know, in terms of believability. But overall, I think I did enjoy this movie, though, as much as I was hoping I would. Again, I wasn't expecting a great movie. I was just hoping it to have an entertaining time at the theater, be invested enough in the characters, and be on this fun 2.5-hour ride that this movie is. And one of the reasons why also I have such a positive outlook on this movie is it just felt like they were having fun with this too. Like, being 10 movies into this, they're still having fun with this, it seems like, along with trying to have that heart there as well. There's a scene with John Cena in this movie. If you watch WWE growing up, especially the age that I'm at, he does some moves in this movie where I'm like, oh man, that is just great. You might know what I'm talking about already just by mentioning that. There was just moments like that throughout here where I thought they're just having fun with this movie, with these movies at this point. They know it gets ridiculous at times, but I think that after the last movie, again, I think they know the line to not cross to get into that complete out of this world ridiculousness, no pun intended, of course. But that's my main thoughts. I'm going to give Fast 10 7.5 out of 10. Still a very nice installment into this franchise, but by no means the best of the best. But what do you guys think? Have you seen this movie yet? Are you planning on seeing it? What are your thoughts on this franchise as a whole and this movie in particular? Leave a comment down below and also hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. And also hit that subscribe button as well if this is your first time watching any of my videos. Or if you're a returning viewer as well, any support for this channel is very much appreciated. You can also follow me on TikTok and add me on Snapchat, where I'll post content similar to this. But for the most part, my content will be here on this YouTube channel, Not Your Average Josh. So again, I appreciate all the support. To be looking for more videos very soon. I'm probably going to be reviewing, I plan on doing Into the Spider-Verse, before Across the Spider-Verse comes out on June 2nd. And of course, The Little Mermaid comes out next week as well, along with a few other movies. So that'll be it for now. I will talk to you guys later.